Actually, Mark, one hang up. This is what I just thought of. When the calls come in,
we're on.
No, actually, no, I can hold them. No, I can't hold them. I can hold them. But I'm thinking,
Tim, we're on. Wisconsin with a win to open up Big Ten play and get us started here in week 4. Welcome in, everyone, to the Voice of College Football. All right, you get a little behind-the-scenes look there. How about that? All right, we've got the phone lines open, whether you'd like to call us on StreamYard, as has been the typical direct line to me. The line is in the chat, so you can call us on StreamYard, and again, in the description section of the video. So please join us on StreamYard, or you can call us directly. The phone line at the bottom of the screen, right on the ticker there. Whatever that phone number is, there it is. We've got 888-997-4539 or 213-373-4672. 2 lines. How about that? 2 phone numbers to call. Aren't we getting fancy here at the Voice of College Football? No. Madison, Wisconsin, and Wisconsin heading back to their hometown after a Big Ten victory. Luke Fickell's first. With the Badgers, they dust off Purdue 38-17. I was asked a couple times about this game and said Wisconsin's going to beat them up on the line of scrimmage on both sides, and that's pretty much what happened in this one as the Badgers won at 38-17. We've got another game going down to the final possession. It would appear... Last number I saw just a few minutes ago was North Carolina State up on Virginia. Yes, they still are 21-13. $1.57 left in the game, and that one landing right on the point spread thus far. I believe NC State a 7.5-point road favorite. Virginia trying to win a game, but they're close to the red zone. They are right about there. So Virginia's got a shot to score and go for 2 and get to overtime. So this should be fascinating. We've got a couple late games from the Mountain West Coast, Mountain West Conference as well. And then we will take it on into Saturday and what should be the best weekend of college football thus far this season. Amazon links in the description section of all the videos, folks. I know I have never mentioned this before, so listen up. We've got an Amazon link. It's in the description section of all the videos. And you shop on Amazon anyway. For those 13 people in the United States who don't, ignore what I'm about to say. But for everybody else, when you shop on Amazon, please use the link in the description section. It doesn't cost you a penny. Same shopping experience. All right, let's get right to the phone lines here with, yes. David, how you doing tonight?
Excellent. What a night. What a weekend of college football, Mark Rogers. Are you pumped up?
Should I say yes?
I'm trying to control my excitement, Mark.
Are you? It looks that way, and that's a good way to be. I got to say, I've been so busy with everything else. I forgot for a few minutes there was even a college football weekend this weekend. So tell me about it.
Well, we've got some games, Mark. Let's talk about college football. I hear that's what you do around here from time to time.
That's what I try to do. Other things get in the way, but this is why we're here. Yes, absolutely. Okay. Let's talk some ball.
Let's get into it. I'm going to start off with Florida State and Clemson. I had this pegged as one of Florida State's losses, but obviously as results change, opinions change, Mark. And with these two teams, I think that's fairly evident. What I'm wondering is if Florida State can really put it on them. I'm not saying that I actually think this might be a slightly competitive game, although I'm leaning towards Florida State by at least 2 scores or more in this game. I know that their performance against Boston College was severely lacking. I get that. And it's going to be tough for them to duplicate what they did against LSU, although I still think that's as good a performance as we've seen this season. Wouldn't you say, Mark?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe the best performance we've seen this season when you consider level of competition. Still number one. Yep. So to that point, and now I'm a big Jordan Travis fan. I heard you make a comment last night. We're going to get to Sam Hartman here in a minute, but you had said that Sam Hartman is one of the top 5, I believe, college quarterbacks as of right now.
Yeah, 5, 8,
Okay.
12. Well,
Okay.
I was just talking. I was just, I didn't have a list in front of me.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you for your list, Mark. That's where I was going to go
We
next.
can
You
go
kind
through
of
the list. Yeah, we
you
can
kind of
go through
opened the
the
door.
list.
Well, to that point, as it ties to Jordan Travis, where would you have Jordan Travis? Would you have him in your top 5, maybe your top 10 right now?
If I was going to draft quarterbacks, I would take Jordan Travis above Sam Hartman because he's got a dynamic running ability that Sam Hartman does not have. And I think he's nearly as good a passer, if not better. And he certainly has less propensity to throw it in harm's way than Sam Hartman does. And I would excuse a lot of Sam Hartman's interception issues in his career as being an issue with my apologies, with too many people bothering me.
Take your time, Mark.
Too much on his plate. Too much on his plate with Wake Forest. Too much, has to sling it all over the place. One of those deals.
Yeah,
So,
having to play hero ball, coming from behind, things of that
Yep.
nature. Yeah, I get your point. Obviously, I like Jordan Travis's supporting cast right now with the business they did in the portal in the offseason and getting Coleman. I tell you what, I think their offensive line seems to be upgraded. At least I was really impressed with their offensive line against LSU. I thought they kind of took that game over in the fourth quarter.
yeah, everything they did primarily
Yeah.
against LSU, not that they didn't give up plays and that sort of thing, but they beat LSU about as soundly as you could expect anybody in the country to beat LSU. And they have the most experienced offensive line in the country. They had 214 starts coming into this season. And they're a team. I made this statement before the season started, and I would hold to it, especially after that LSU performance, that they're one of only 3 teams in the country that I would say I can't point to a positional unit and say that they've got a weakness.
I was actually tending to agree with that. I mean, I was borderline them making the playoff at the beginning of the year. I think we both picked them to win the ACC, if I'm not mistaken, or did you pick Clemson?
Florida State, no.
You picked Clemson?
Gave it a lot of thought, but I did not. No.
Okay. Yeah, I picked Florida State as a 2-loss team, but to win the ACC. I thought they would just get Clemson in the rematch, lose this game, but get them in the rematch in the title game. That
I
being,
picked Florida
go
State
ahead.
to win this game, but with not a whole lot of confidence.
Oh, really? So you're thinking this could be closer to a 1-possession game?
I think this is a 55-45 split.
Really? See, here's the thing. I don't know. Clemson, when I look at the quarterback play, when I look at the skill, when I look at Clemson, and maybe it's just comparing Clemson to past Clemson, I don't see it, Mark. And, I know college football is going to drastically change. And I said I find the ACC very interesting over the last 10 to 12 years because, it was interesting because the ACC once, Florida State had their run from, what was it, 2012, 13, 14, in that period of time. I think they actually won the conference in 2011, if I'm not mistaken. Did they not?
They did in 12. In 11, I don't believe in 11. Anyway, you're talking about Clemson. You're talking about Florida State. Florida State did.
Sorry, Florida
12.
State. I
Clemson
misspoke.
did in 11.
Yes. Yeah. Florida State with the manual teams, and then with the Winston teams. I think may have won it 3 or 4 years in a row. And then it's interesting. Clemson in 15 gets on their run with the Deshaun Watson teams. What I would say is if the ACC was going to continue as we know it, I'm wondering if tomorrow can be seen as like a changing of the guard kind of game. If Florida State was to win it and win it, fairly, by a decent margin.
Yeah, I think it's very much that. We had that conversation this week. Absolutely, we did. That's what that would represent. I don't know if it's that actually on the field. This Florida State team, let's not anoint the program. So there's a difference between the program and the team. This team is primed to break through and own this conference this year. But after these guys move on to the NFL, this roster hasn't necessarily been stacked behind it.
That's
So
true.
this team is very much primed to do something this year. But let's not write off Clemson after this year.
Yeah, I get your point. It wasn't like Norvell had like 4 straight top 5 recruiting classes, to back him up going into next year or something like that.
I can't think of anybody. There aren't that many players on this team that are impact players, especially at the skill positions that aren't transfers.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. They did a
Yeah.
ton of business in the portal in the offseason. Totally worked it. But I'm just bottom line, I'm leaning Florida State by at least 10 in this game. I just think Travis has a good game. And I'm with you. I don't see a lot of deficiencies on this Florida State team. Although they can play down to their competition, which we saw against Boston College. I only saw the tail end of that game, and believe you me, when I saw it, it wasn't that impressive, and they were very fortunate in a lot of ways to get out of there with a victory. So
Absolutely, they were.
All right, let's get to Iowa and Penn State. I wanted to throw that out there because I find that game to be really interesting. Were you, first of all, with Penn State, were you terribly surprised they had some struggles offensively last week with Illinois? Because I wasn't necessarily.
No, I don't know that a lot of teams are going to run that well against Illinois. Drew Aller didn't look that impressive, but I'm not that concerned about him. His struggles were more about a decision making, more so than arm talent, and I guess I would be more on the side of giving Penn State a free pass had Illinois performed better at Kansas. But matchups make fights, and once we get into conference play, then things are somewhat set up differently, I think, and motivations and just styles of play and how well they know each other and all of that. So I will say what I've said a number of times, in that Penn State, if they win the Big Ten, I will not be shocked in any such way. I seriously gave them consideration as the best team in the Big Ten. I think they have the best defense in the Big Ten. I think they have. We'll see if they have the best performing defense in the Big Ten. They have the best personnel on defense in the Big Ten, and they may turn out to have the best quarterback when it's all said and done. They're underwhelming at wide receiver, but they're capable. They're okay. They're fine. I don't know why. And I said this to the Penn State Rivals guy the other day. I don't know why they play Malik McLean from Florida State. He was underwhelming there. They give him a lot of reps and a lot of targets at Penn State, and he's underwhelming there. So I don't know that. They couldn't run the ball that well against Illinois. That wasn't the two backs issue.
Right.
From what I could tell.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but I believe the one D lineman is that the defensive tackle from Illinois projected to be a very, very high pick in the NFL draft, if I'm not mistaken. The name is escaping me, but
he's Jerson Newton.
Yeah, he's a presence.
Yeah, he was the best player on the field in that game. I watched that whole game, and he didn't surprise me because I knew how good he was. But man, he dominated the line of scrimmage and was in Aller's face and blocked a kick. And
yeah. Well, Burt has some defensive talent. I mean, I know that they lost some key players off of their team last year. Obviously, I think the most important was Brown at running back, who I think kind of carried that offense, if I'm not mistaken, last year. And you obviously saw their deficiencies at quarterback in that position, in that game, which totally put the game in Penn State's favor. Of course, if they had any type of competent quarterback play, that game at the very least comes down to the wire. I do think that I tend to agree. I was going to make a couple of points about Penn State kind of looking long term, and I'm going to get to this game. But, you're right. I wondered if Parker Washington would have come back this year. I think that would have definitely given them a presence. Not saying, to leave early and get drafted in the lower rounds of the draft is, okay, you do you, man. But maybe if it had come back and had a nice year, he might have put himself in a better position with the draft. Penn State typically has, they don't have multiple guys like the Buckeyes have, but they usually have that one guy, Hamler, Dotson, Washington, I thought last year was that kind of guy, that one guy that's usually their kind of go-to stretch the field playmaker type. I tend to agree with you. I don't see much of that this year. The other thing with Penn State is I don't think their offensive line play is great. And that's the one thing. And I know they got the one tackle is projected to be a high pick, but maybe their line as a group did not look impressive. And it could have been because they were going against, that stout Illinois defense. And I think that's something to watch this week. I do think Iowa's defense can keep this close, but I just think that, the bottom line is unless Iowa gets turnovers, I see no path to victory here. That's my bottom line. I just can't see a Ferentz offense putting up the 21 to 24 points at the very least it's going to take to win this game.
Well, I would agree. And Iowa, unfortunately for them, they've been hit with a lot of injuries on an offense that's already awful.
Yeah.
So they're number 2 and 1 running backs. Their 1 and 2 running backs are on the shelf, will not play. The best tight end in the conference won't play. He's out for the season.
Yeah, I'm sad to hear that about Luke Lachey.
Yeah. But again, when we talk about what is going to surprise us, I guess I'm at the point where nothing's going to surprise me. So I just, in any of these games that are at least somewhat competitive, but like you, I'm just trying to figure out how in the world is Iowa going to score. If they score 2 touchdowns, that would be a good outing. They are close to a 15-point underdog in this game. That seems rather alarming to me. Now, our guy, Steve Merrill.
Gosh, nice record on Merrill, by the way, right, Mark?
15-1 against the spread.
Woo! Take him to Vegas right now.
Why we don't have like 1,000 people on Patreon and a YouTube membership here, because you get the selection here too, the YouTube membership. Well, I don't know, because you pay $5 a month and this guy's 15-1 against the spread. Let alone if you play my picks, you're not going 15-1, but you're out ahead. But me aside, shoot, I'm rubbish. 15-1, and his math models say Penn State wins this game by 20.
Wow, I'm close to that. You know what I see? Here's what I see. Bottom line, I think Iowa keeps it close through 3 quarters. I see like a 13-10. 14-10, and then I see a 27-10, 28-10 kind of final because they pull away in the 4th. And the dam cracks for Iowa. Their defense finally gets tired, or Iowa hands them a turnover. Maybe Cade McNamara throws them a pick, or they get a fumble, or what have you. And I think this game really reeks of about a 28-10, 27-10 kind of final in my view.
Okay, it reeks more for me in the 23-16 range for Penn State.
You can see Iowa scoring 16 points.
You've got them at 10.
Well, that's true. I'm getting a couple of turnovers.
Illinois got,
yeah.
Illinois was the one turning the ball over. Iowa always gets turnovers. Yes, I would expect them to get some turnovers in this game.
Yeah, I don't think they cover. They might not cover, but I think at least by 2 scores. Penn State.
How surprised would you be if Iowa won this game?
It would take. Well, if you told me they got 4, if they won the turnover battle 4-0, I wouldn't be surprised. But barring that, I can't see a path to victory. I mean, you just talked up the Penn State defense, to be fair, and yeah, they're better with McNamara than they are with Petrus at quarterback, but their best offensive weapon is out for the game, and I don't know. I don't see this great talent on the offensive side of the ball putting up enough points against that defense.
Yeah, I can see Iowa stealing a win. I think they've got a 30% chance of winning.
Okay. I'm more 75% to Penn State.
Oh,
Maybe,
well, we're right there then.
well, maybe less than that. I don't know. I'd have to quantify. Yeah, but 75% still has a team winning by at least 2 scores.
Well, I don't make that math
Okay.
correlation myself,
Yeah.
but I get it. But that
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean, I've certainly thought teams had 25 or 30% chances of winning games and pick them to win the game anyway, because there are things called upsets, and I try to look for those each week. Speaking of which, Ohio
What's that?
State, Notre Dame, I think Ohio State is a 65 or 70% team versus Notre Dame. I think they're in that category above Notre Dame.
Last game before I get to it, Mark. Last game real quick. Just bottom line, chances are Ole Miss beats Bama tomorrow. You want to quantify that as maybe a percentage? I don't know.
Yeah, 35.
Really? So Milroe and the and Alabama and Tommy Reese and that crew puts together an offense that can put some points on the board and look effective, maybe.
Yeah, they'll be fine.
Okay. Kiffin-O's always found a way to score on Saban, though, too. Even with Saban's best team, remember, they dropped 49 on him that year. They couldn't stop him, but you know what I mean?
They did. He never wins the game, but yes.
You think Bama big?
No, I think they have too many offensive limitations, and until they show that they can break free of that against a good opponent, I'm not going to rely on their offense winning a game big.
Tend to agree.
I think they'll win.
All right,
by
let's
10.
get to it, Mark.
How about
The
10?
game 10? Okay. I think I think it's close. I think that's a 1-possession game.
Okay.
If it's 1-possession game. All right, let's get to it, Mark. Game of the week. Down to brass tacks here. I believe at the beginning of the year, if I'm not mistaken, Mark Rogers picked Ohio State to win the national title. He picked them to do it with 2 losses, to be the first team since 2007 LSU to do so, who, interestingly enough, beat Ohio
bucking
State.
A lot of trends by doing all this, but keep
right.
going.
And correct me if I'm wrong, one of the 2 losses that Mark Rogers had was
in South Bend to Notre Dame. For all those Notre Dame people that hate me, who have been wrongly and inaccurately citing all sorts of things that I've said. I don't know if you've caught any of this week, but my goodness.
Yeah, you and Kevin Newton will not be welcomed in South Bend. No, I'm kidding.
I just tell it like it is. Just because they've been Iowa over the last 20 years, that's not my fault. That's their fault for hiring bad coaches.
Well, I mean, Kelly was Kelly. I mean, he elevated them. I mean, Charlie Weiss, had the Brady Quinn teams, and then it disintegrated after that. And, I mean, I hear you. All right, here's my overall feel. And I kind of expressed a little bit of it, with the conversation we had with your ND guy and with Will, but I'm just going to kind of encapsulate it for you. I think that the one thing that gives me really some, positive vibes, and I think this is about a 55-45 game to Ohio State if we're talking percentages.
Okay. So you actually have less confidence in Ohio State than I do, in a sense.
In some ways, yes, but I'm going to get to my projection in a minute. I actually maybe already give it, but I'll give it one more time. But the things that give me confidence, and I'm actually trending more confident as the days go by with this game, because number one, my biggest concern of Ohio State and to most Ohio State fans coming into the season was the offensive line. I think that for the most part, they've held up well in pass pro. It's been shaky run blocking really the first 3 games where they've really shown their deficiencies, in my view. And as I expressed to your Notre Dame guys, I don't see a force multiplier or a difference maker on this Notre Dame defensive line. I don't see anybody on the level of, let's say, a Foskey that they had last year. I don't see like a Hutchinson type or a difference maker, somebody that moves the needle that can cause real problems for them. I think Freeman's going to have to use some blitz packages to really dial it up against McCord. Now, one of my concerns would be, and Zach Smith gave out this stat, McCord has not been great against the blitz. So that's something to keep in mind. But I still feel confident that Ohio State's offensive line can hold up in pass pro. If they can, McCord can do some business. I know this Notre Dame secondary, you think we were debating on whether it's the best Ohio State has seen. I think you could still make a case that Penn State is going to have the best secondary that they're going to see. I know the team up north is good, Moore, Johnson, some of the guys they've got back there, but those two corners, King is a really good. And they've got the other corner escapes me, but he's a really good player as well. I forget the other name of the corner. I know he's very solid.
Yeah, Cam Miller. Hardy's a corner that had an interception against Illinois as well. So,
what do you think initially of my offensive analysis there?
Well, if we're citing statistics after 3 games, I tend to, unfortunately for Ohio State, think that anything that is negative on the negative side is more valid than anything on the positive side.
Okay.
Meaning because they're going to be playing their best opponent and because we're looking at a lot of inexperience at the quarterback position. So if Kyle McCord, let's say he would be lighting up the blitz, I would say, okay, well, let's hold on because he's going to see a Notre Dame blitz and combined with Notre Dame coverage more so versus if he's struggling against the blitz, Indiana, Western Kentucky, Youngstown State. That doesn't sound too good.
Well, what I would say is I do believe he's gained some confidence over the course of the last couple games after the Indiana game. Now, I agree with you. The competition is weak. I'm going to be the first to deny that, but you got to start somewhere. And I think that first of all, you have to prove that you can at least go out and do it on the field to begin with. And the one thing that the other thing, and I had cited this also in a conversation, I'm just going to be real interested to see what Day's game plan is. I mean, next to the offensive line play, and it's not McCord for me, it's going to be the offensive line play and Day's game plan from an offensive standpoint, really where I'm at in this game. Does Day trust him to, push the ball down the field, and really challenge that defense?
He better.
Yeah.
He better, because then he is not taking advantage of his biggest asset, and that's those wide receivers. I'm going to make the most obvious statement in that they need to be balanced. Now, does that need to be 50-50? No, but it needs to be somewhere in the 60-40, 65-35 range at most on either end. But they can't just get pass happy or go into a shell like they did against Indiana and try to protect him unless they get a lead, of course. If they're up by 2 scores in the first half, then shoot, go for it. See if you can run it down their throats. But the things that concern me are exactly what you just said. And I'll liken it to, let's say their running game was ripping off 8.5 yards a carry against those 3 opponents. Then I'd be like, well, that they've looked really good. That's great. But look at the 3 opponents versus if they were struggling, that's a much more valid number. That if they were averaging 2.5 yards per carry and now they're facing Notre Dame, it would be like, okay, well, that's a more valid statistic. And so that's where I tend to be concerned about what you're saying against the blitz. Now, I would also like to know, I think you actually have to watch those plays because I can't think that the sample size is that great in those 3 games against the blitz. I've said this all week, and I think it makes sense, but everybody's built differently. We have to expect that Sam Hartman's going to be less rattled or have the potential to be less rattled than Kyle McCord. And I mean between the ears. I don't mean if he's pressured, he's pressured. If he's laying on his back, he's not going to get anything done regardless. But you know how quarterbacks can get if they get thrown around a little bit and they can't step up, they can't throw, they're frustrated because somebody's breathing down their neck, but then maybe the offensive line, maybe they figure some things out and they pick up some blitzes and they start to sort things out and figure out who they need to block, but the quarterback's still a bit
Yeah.
skittish.
Well, yeah, and I hear you. I mean, quarterbacks getting sacked and quarterbacks getting pressured. We always look at the offensive line, but it's also the quarterback's ability to get rid of the ball quickly and not hold on to it too long. And quarterback sacks and all of that as much on the quarterback as it is on the offensive line, if not more so in a lot of instances. The one thing I'll say, too, just last to wrap up the point about the day game plan, I think he's been ramping up to let McCord let it rip. Because I think if you look at the 3 games, and I know that the competition is weak, but the game plan is still the game plan. If you notice, he's ramped up his game plan and allowed McCord to be more aggressive after those first 2 games. So that's why I'm saying he's maybe ramping up to the point to where, okay, I've gotten more aggressive. Now we're playing, and now let's go with our aggressiveness. So that's where I come down. I would also say to the other side of the ball that, and this is where I'm going with the other side of the ball. I believe Notre Dame brings in a better quarterback. My question to you is, I believe Ohio State brings in a better defense, or are you also just throwing out the fact that this is a better defense because of the competition?
I don't know if Ohio State has a better defense than Notre Dame. I know that Ohio State has a better defense than they did last year.
Okay, well, that's where I was going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident that they are better, that the additions that they've made, that Denzel Burke's improvement, that another year of Jack Sawyer and JTT, and putting Jack Sawyer in a position to be a more forceful impact player than he was playing that Jack position last year. I think they've made positive, look at all their key players on defense. They've got another year under their belt. They should another year as individual players to be better players. And number 2, another year under Jim Knowles' system. And then they add the 2 defensive backs from Syracuse and Ole Miss.
Right.
Yes, I'm picked this team to win the national championship. Yes, I'm banking on this defense. All those things I just mentioned to just ratchet it up their level of play.
Well, and that leads me to my point, and I'm going to get to my score prediction. I know that you've got to give yours. When we talked about this game, I believe a week or 2 ago, you had said that you wouldn't be surprised if Ohio State won this game in the 20s.
Exactly.
Okay. So, you don't see, I mean, it's not a game where Ohio State better score 40 plus to win. And I agree with you. That's why I think, and I do think Notre Dame's better offensively. I think obviously they're going to score more than 10 points than they did a year ago. But that's where I come down in this game. I think Ohio State's defense is better. But I think from an offensive standpoint, I just think that with Dave's confidence in McCord and with the playmakers that Ohio State has, I think their playmakers make a few more plays than Notre Dame's playmakers. And I think Ohio State is more capable of dealing with Notre Dame's weapons and their defense with Ohio State's improved defense, which is why I'm picking the Buckeyes to win 31-24. I was actually thinking about going 28-24. I could be there too, like you're saying, the game in the 20s, but I tipped a field goal that way.
Okay.
When are you putting out your pick, or have you already put it out there?
It's out there.
Okay.
It is out there for all to see.
Okay. Well, folks, we're going to have a big-time watch party tomorrow.
Yes, we're going to have a watch party.
Yeah.
And so this is for people that like to mingle and they like to chat during the game. But if you're like me and you don't want any of bother, you still throw us on there. And then you just, check in during the commercial breaks and the timeouts, folks.
Well, I'll bring the queso, Mark. You can bring the chips or something like that, or
yeah, I would rather have somebody bring donuts, ice cream, cookies.
Jeez. This man has the ultimate sweet tooth, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, I absolutely do. I'm just disappointed that I finished off the third of 3 half gallons last night and some chocolate chip cookies because I had nothing today.
That potato and salad diet that was around about a year ago went right out the window.
It was around for about 10 or 12 days.
Okay.
But
well, keep up. No, go ahead.
I continue to make efforts in that direction.
Okay. Well, keep up the cardio, Mark.
A lot of water. Look
There
at
you
this,
go.
David. Tons
Yeah.
of water.
You got as much water as you do notebook pads, I'm sure.
Yeah. It's what keeps me going. Trips to the gym.
To the man that gives college football its voice, ladies and gentlemen, Mark Rogers.
Thank you, David. Good
Have
to
a
see you.
Always a
Enjoy the
pleasure.
game. Our guy, David Greenshield. Smart caller. Always gets the reinforcement of that in the chat from all of you. David does a great job. Does my eye look strange? Man, I don't know what in the world's been in my eye ever since we started, but it's been driving me crazy. All right, welcome in everyone to the Voice of College Football. We're going to take this next call. We got Wisconsin over Purdue tonight, 38-17. I warned this guy.
That's how we know exactly.
Sorry, Michael.
What's up today.
How you doing
All
tonight?
right.
What's going? Who won? Who playing?
No, it's just a post-game show. No, I'm at work watching the game. It's telling.
What kind of
sorry.
silliness is going
Who's
on
running
there?
this college?
Going once, going, yeah, see ya. All right, let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. Don't need to hear any of your own silliness and personal conversations. All right, let's see who's in the chat. Anybody? And keep in mind that tonight you can call us. You got the call-in line right there. If you're uncomfortable with the StreamYard and everything that's going on there in regards to joining us in that manner, I know that that can be possibly a little cumbersome for some folks. I don't know that personally because I don't have to use StreamYard from your end of things, but we appreciate Tim setting us up with the phone lines. 888-997-4539. Thank you so much for considering the phone lines again. 888-997-4539. Call us here at the Voice of College Football. All right. We will run through week 4. We did have a dramatic finish in Charlottesville tonight. The Cavaliers were going for their first win. Unfortunately, after a big comeback in the fourth quarter, down a couple scores and then driving where they scored the game-tying touchdown with the 2-point conversion. They went down on a last-second field goal. Nice drive by NC State, I guess. I didn't see it. It was a bit of a blur as we were on the phone with David here, but I saw 21-all with about 20 seconds left, and I figured we were headed toward overtime. And the next thing I know, NC State's lining up for a long field goal, and they avoid an upset loss on the road. So NC State moved to 3-1, pick up that win in the ACC, and Virginia now a lowly 0-4. All right, let's try Michael again. Michael, how you doing tonight besides the obvious?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I was talking to one of my supervisors. I'm actually at work right now, so doing double duty.
Well, you can always put your supervisor on here with us as well. Who does he root for?
Bama.
Oh, Bama fan. Okay, sure.
Yeah, he's from Alabama. But hey,
let him know that he's welcome here at the Voice of College Football.
Oh, I spread the word around, but I see it was the quarterback that killed us again tonight for Wisconsin. Last week it was Schrader. Tonight it was Mordecai.
Mordecai did look sharp. His final numbers were 17 of 27 for $174 and a pick, and the really nice interception on a ball that was kind of wrestled between two players. But I thought Tanner Mordecai looked much better than what I had seen out of him against
Washington State,
Group of Fives and the Washington State game.
Yeah, I mean, like Purdue. I don't know, Mark. I'm beginning to wonder if this is like the Cubs is Purdue cursing against Wisconsin.
None of that nonsense, Michael. You're better than that.
I know, but I mean, it's been 20 seasons now, and with the new format and stuff like that, you wonder when Purdue's going to play Wisconsin again with the new scheduling
well, you don't
system.
Want to play again. You don't want to play him again.
Well, sure, but hey, I mean, like. I just wanted to see it happen in my lifetime. I just wanted to see it beat Wisconsin.
I'm just kidding.
But no, I got to give him.
So they've lost 17 consecutive games to Wisconsin, but really, how many of those games was Purdue better than Wisconsin?
Maybe one.
Oh, yeah. I was going to throw out 3. You're saying once. Okay. See? Well, then
what was the other 2?
Not much of a jinx. It's just basically Wisconsin's been better than Purdue.
Yeah, it seemed like when Wisconsin scores first, it's a wrap. against Purdue because Purdue can't not find a way to come back. Even though they've given Purdue opportunities in the past, it just never happened and stuff like that. But no, boy, I hope that running back from Wisconsin is going to be all right, though, because that looked like that was a pretty gruesome injury, though.
Yeah, I did not see the play. I saw them huddled around him, so I don't know what happened there. Was that Braylon Allen or was that Ches Malusi?
No, it was Malusi.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Allen had a good game today. But what I was surprised about is how well Purdue was able to run the football against Wisconsin tonight, though.
Yeah, I saw Tyrone Tracy had that one incredible touchdown run. That was extremely impressive where he really
Yeah,
juked
they
the
had
safety
almost
in the hole there.
They almost had 200 yards rushing, and wonder when the last time Purdue had that much against Wisconsin running the football.
Yeah,
Probably when Mike also was there back in the 90s.
Yeah, that's a great stat, and that's a great rushing effort. But man, there's something wrong if they lose by 3 touchdowns. And I know it was closer than that for much of the way, but gaining 200 yards on the ground at 6.3 yards per carry, and they lose by 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. Couple interceptions and stuff like that. Well, one of them was at halftime on a Hail Mary and stuff like that. But I don't know, Mark.
2 sacks, meaning really Purdue probably ran for more like 210 to 215.
Yeah. I don't know, Mark. It's going to be pretty rough. I don't know when I'm going to see another Purdue win anytime soon.
Yeah, the schedule is who's coming up next week?
Illinois at Ross-Ade.
Well, why can't you win next week?
Well, it could happen, but the way Purdue played the last couple of weeks, though, get off to a slow start, I don't know.
Look at the way Illinois played the last couple of weeks.
Sure. That is true, though. No, other than that, I was just wondering stuff. I can't wait for the games tomorrow night. And I think Notre Dame wins the 41-34 tomorrow night.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a shootout of a game in Wisconsin. Yeah, not bad. So you're thinking, I didn't catch the score there with Dave. What was you thinking?
Well, I've got my picks for our folks with the YouTube memberships and Patreon, but Dave likes Ohio State.
Yeah, I seen that. I'm thinking touchdown either way and stuff like that. Does Ole Miss shock the world tomorrow in Tuscaloosa?
Well, number 1, no. Number 2, I hope nobody would be shocked by that.
Yep, not bad. So did North Carolina State end up beating Virginia?
Yes, on a last-second field goal.
Oh, nice. Not bad. All right. So no live stream for you tomorrow?
No live stream tomorrow. Of course, there are live streams tomorrow.
No.
Saturday.
Well, I mean, I know you're gonna have it. But I didn't know what particular if you're gonna do it for the noon games or the 3:30 games or prime time.
Yeah. So this is what we're gonna do, Michael. We have a couple big games at noon, and we will do some instant analysis. And if there's anything interesting to talk about at halftime, I'll break in. Same thing at 3:30, and then we'll be here live at 7:30 for our Ohio State Notre Dame watch party, and then we'll do our wrap-up call-in show. Yeah, not bad. All right, I was just wondering stuff like that. Last thing, is it a 7 o'clock kickoff for Oregon and Colorado? And is Oregon really going to beat the brakes off of Colorado tomorrow? No and no. It's a 3:30 kickoff. Okay. 3:30 Eastern time. All right. And do you think it'll probably be, a 14 to 17 point win for Oregon tomorrow? Yeah, I can see that. I guess that would be more shocking if Colorado went into Eugene and won, I guess, and Ole Miss going to Tuscaloosa and went in. Well, by Vegas standards, it would be much more shocking for the Buffs to go to Eugene and win. And I would agree with that, but not by the difference in the point spreads, though. I would not be that shocked by it. Yeah. I do believe, we're looking at a Colorado team that was a 3-touchdown underdog to TCU, but TCU is not Oregon. Oregon is a much better football team than TCU. Yep. I heard you saying something. I think is Purdue streak. I heard you saying something about Ohio State has like a 20-game winning streak against IU. Well, they've got a 35-year winning streak. I'm trying to think. They haven't missed that many years in there, but they haven't lost since '88, as you well know.
Yep, and I know this and stuff like that, but I wonder what other team might have a long losing streak against a certain team out there
Against any team?
Yeah, that's the current streak right now. That they play each other every year. It is the current streak.
Let me think. For teams that play every year, there aren't that many out there. And I hate to be a homer on this, but most of them in the Big Ten involve Ohio State because Ohio State loses one game in the Big Ten every year. That's kind of like, that's the high water mark for losses for Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't lost more than one game in the Big Ten, aside from the Luke Fickell year, since 2004. So they pretty much have a long winning streak against all sorts of teams in the Big Ten. But really, I can't, outside of your Purdue, Wisconsin, I can't think of other long winning streaks. And then going across the country, I don't know. You'd have to Google that. I can't come up with anything for you. USC, we're speaking of Colorado. USC's beaten Colorado like 15 or 16 consecutive times. So there's one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's in Pac-12, right? Or is that one that was in the Big 8 also?
That would be the last 10 or 11 times in the Pac-12. Let's see, they joined, I believe, in 2012. So that's 11 games in the Pac-12, and that's whatever number of games that they played before that.
Sounds good.
USC has never lost to Colorado.
Sounds good. All right, Mark. Thanks. Catch you later.
Appreciate it, Michael. Have a good night.
Yep. See you.
It's our guy Michael calling in with the Boilers losing to Wisconsin 38-17, and Purdue's down to 1-3 now. And the outlook for Purdue football not looking great this season. I picked them 5-7. That might be a little generous at this point. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. We've got the real MVP on the line.
Hey, Mark, how you doing this afternoon/evening?
I am doing just fine.
Well, that's good. I would like to talk about some games. And I was shocked with the way David Greenshield was describing the Florida State versus Clemson game, because he was making it seem like Florida State should easily walk away with the game. They're going to have no problems, just roll the ball out there. And I mean, Vegas only has it at 1.5-point favorite. Clemson's the more talented team there. It's at Clemson, a place where they rarely lose. So I wouldn't chalk it up or be shocked and surprised at all if Clemson wins.
Well, I'm not going to be shocked and surprised, but you're telling us that Clemson is the more talented team? You said that with conviction.
Yeah, because they are, according to the rankings.
Yeah,
Florida State's
then that's with transfers included.
I would assume it's the team total composite. I would assume they bake in transfers.
Yeah, I would love to sit down with some. We need to have somebody on from 247 Sports to fill us in. So I understand the basis of it, and I don't think there's anything I'm necessarily missing with the compilation of that. But when a Keon Coleman, I'll look him up right now to see where he was ranked as a recruit, but he comes into college football, like our buddy Steve Dace does talent rankings as well. But when Sam Hartman breaks completely free of whatever his recruiting ranking was, which completely was underwhelming, and becomes one of the 5 best quarterbacks in college football, then, you got to throw that recruiting ranking out the door. And Florida State's got a number of those guys. Jordan Travis was not, I can't imagine, was anything close to, as a recruited player, what he's become, for example.
Well, I understand that, Mark, and I don't know the ins and outs of it. I just know Florida State's 20th, and I know Clemson's better than 20th, much better than 20th.
Yeah, but we know that Florida State's much better than the 20th best team in the country.
Oh, yeah. Well,
at least they've shown that to be thus far.
I mean, Boston College could have beat them, and Boston College I thought, was the worst Power 5 team, maybe one of the worst teams in general. Should have lost to Holy Cross, lost to Northern Illinois. So who knows with Clemson?
Yeah, but Jordan Travis was the 24th rated dual threat quarterback in the country, and he was the 119th rated player in the state of Florida.
But the question is, do they readjust it every year?
I don't know how they would readjust. They would have to have more people working there than I can imagine to readjust entire recruiting classes year after year after year. let's just spitball this. Jordan Travis comes out in the year of 2019, I believe, and he's the 119th rated player in the state of Florida. Then they go back and look at the state of Florida the next year and determine, okay, well, he made a Power 5 program. He's at Louisville. He's up to 87th. And then he goes to Florida State, becomes a starting quarterback, but he's still a pretty lousy starting quarterback. So now he's up to what, 62? Like, there's no way they are going through all of that each season to reevaluate the entire class.
Maybe. I mean, I didn't mean for every single player, but I meant for the outliers like Jordan Travis. Who knows?
They better do it for every player.
I would agree,
It's
but
not accurate.
I would agree, but I'm
point.
just
Clemson's more talented than Florida State. Again, I would challenge that based on the proven production of the transfers that Florida State has, and Clemson basically has none.
I understand that, Mark. I'm just going off I've read on a website. Okay, if you want to challenge that, don't challenge me as the messenger. Challenge them.
Yeah, I am. That's exactly what I'm doing right now.
Okay, but do you also see my point where if Clemson were to win, it wouldn't be this massive upset?
Oh,
I don't see this game being
not.
2 touchdowns either way. I think this is going to be a really close, exciting, good football game. And for David to act like Florida State's going to win just by showing up and getting off the bus, I mean.
Well, I think he's looking at what Florida State did against LSU, and then he's looking at what Clemson failed to do against Duke. And the one point in which I'll stick up for David is that even though Florida State showed us what they did against Boston College, I do think it's more telling what a team can do at their high water mark. What is their ceiling? And Florida State has shown us an extremely high ceiling that few teams in the country to date have been able to show us. Texas, I guess, would be the only team in the country that's shown us that high of a ceiling.
Right, but could I reverse that and say Florida State showing us a worse floor than Clemson?
Yeah, but I think the ceiling is more valid because if you've got a lower floor, then you're going to lose anyway.
Fair enough, Mark. I'm just providing some discussion here. Now, I want to get to some other games, okay? The upset of the week that I like is Auburn at Texas A&M.
Oh, I love it. Yes, I'm right there with you.
You can go off on your rant about Jimbo Fisher. You seem like you wanted to take that comment and run with it. So
I've already made that pick right there. Auburn to win straight up.
Okay, when are you going to post the picks on the members only YouTube?
It's there.
Yeah, I haven't. Okay,
I'm sorry. In the YouTube, I got to transfer that. I apologize. I can do that like right this second. I will do that as we speak.
I haven't seen the pick, so I don't know. So I like Auburn to win the game. If Jimbo loses, does he get fired? Are you willing to go that far?
Well, I don't know what other people are deciding, so that's always my backup to those.
Okay, would you fire him if he loses this game?
No, I want to see him coach the whole season.
Okay. Now,
but does that put a foot in the grave, or the second foot, like does he have a foot in the grave and the other one's like, got a toenail just barely on the ground? Yeah. It doesn't look good if he can't beat Auburn at home, and he has yet to play Alabama, LSU, and shoot some other teams that could knock him off. They've got to face, South Carolina. I'm trying to think who their other SEC. Tennessee. Yeah, it could be a rough one.
Another typical 8-4 type season for Texas A&M. Maybe even 7-5 or 6-6 with losing to Miami. But Mark, how we say there's bad ACC teams. Well, I would just like to point this out as an example. Virginia Tech road underdogs at Marshall this week.
By how much?
5 points.
Oh my goodness. That's pathetic.
How good is Marshall this year? Have you watched any Marshall highlights? Is Marshall one of these elite group of 5 teams or anything, or is Virginia Tech this bad?
Well, I don't know how good Marshall is. I don't know. Maybe there's some Notre Dame fans in the chat that could let us know how good Marshall is. Maybe they've scouted them this year, because they've, that's kind of a rivalry that they've got going with Marshall.
Fair enough, Mark. Fair enough. I'll make the game I care most about, Kentucky Vanderbilt, quick. Kentucky needs to win. Kentucky should win. Unacceptable to lose to Vanderbilt 2 years in a row. I don't care what construction zone stadium they're playing in. Kentucky's got to win this game.
Amen
Do you see
to
that, Mark? They're literally lifting the scoreboard with 2 cranes, by the way.
They were supposed to get that done by now. They're too smart at Vanderbilt to allow something like that to happen.
Yeah, the visiting locker room, quote unquote, is just a tent, which I didn't even know you could do that, but apparently you can. Let's see, Ole Miss versus Alabama, Mark. I think Ole Miss is the better team. I think Ole Miss should win this game pretty comfortably. I just think people need to accept the Alabama of this year is just not a good football team. For whatever reason, I would even go far as to say there aren't even a team at Alabama. It's just a group of individuals playing football. They don't look like they care at all. They don't look like they have any energy when they play. And I honestly think if they lose this game by like 20 points, which I think is going to happen, I think the question is, has Alabama given up on this season?
Yeah, you're way in front of that as far as I'm concerned.
I understand, Mark, but I've been right so far this entire time about Alabama. And I mean, if they play like they did against South Florida, they're going to lose this game by a ton.
Oh, sure they are.
And Ole Miss
they're not going to play this game like they did against South Florida. That's not going to happen.
Okay. I mean, they got Jalen Milroe, but Ole Miss can light up the scoreboard. They've played the better team. They've played on a crazy road environment against Tulane. So
a crazy road environment at Tulane.
Yeah, that was Tulane's probably biggest game in program history.
Okay, well, you're a younger person, so let's keep that in mind.
You're disrespecting the Green Wave, Mark. Don't disrespect the Green Wave.
I'm actually respecting them more to tell our friends out there listening in College Football Nation that Tulane has played much bigger games than what they played against Ole Miss. They played in the Sugar Bowl. They used to play in that conference. They've played bigger games than that. They played the Cotton Bowl last year.
I'll amend it to regular season games.
Okay.
And Mark, the final game I want to talk about, and I think this is a potential letdown spot. I think Baylor plays Texas.
Mm-hmm.
This is the type of game where Texas, I think, would normally lose.
Yeah.
Do you see a potential upset happening?
I think so. I know that Baylor played Utah extremely well with a backup quarterback, and I don't know if what the status of the Baylor quarterback is. I'd have to look at Blake Shapen to see if he even is ready to go. That's a good question. I'd like to look that up. But Baylor's at home, and again, they've already played a team in Utah. So it's not a shock factor in terms of strength, talent, ability. They've already played that kind of team. Not that Utah's got dynamic talent, but they're an extremely stout team at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, and Baylor stood up to that. Yeah, Baylor's not going to be intimidated by Texas. That's one thing, is that none of those teams in that conference should be intimidated by Texas. They've all won games against these players that are on this Texas roster.
I agree, Mark. And I know you didn't see the end of the NC State-Virginia game. So what happened was Virginia, they scored a touchdown. They got an unsportsmanlike penalty because the right guard took off his helmet. They hit the 2-point conversion from like 18 yards out.
Oh, wow.
So you know what happens? The guy who catches the ball had his helmet pop off, so he stood up and didn't put his helmet back on.
Okay, so we're talking about the wide receiver catches the 2-point conversion. His helmet falls off while he's catching the pass?
Oh, sorry, I'm being corrected. The quarterback did it.
Oh.
He was hit to the ground.
Okay.
His helmet popped off.
Okay.
And then he gets up and he does like a muscle pose to show like he's awesome and stuff, and he didn't put on his helmet.
Yes. Point number one, if you're an 0-4 quarterback, you're not awesome. So just be happy that you're still in the game, still competing. So be happy. We get it, but you're not awesome. Don't show off the guns. And learn from the previous play. Learn from each other's mistakes. That's too bad. It's funny. It's also a bit sad.
Feels like it goes back on coaching, Mark. But hey, that's all I got for you this evening. Fight on to USC, a team who should win by 50 this week.
All right. We appreciate everybody being here at the Voice of College Football. And Tim, I don't know how we're going to do this necessarily, but we'd like to bring in our guy, Dave, who is on the phone line. Is Dave still available? Hello, Dave. Can you hear me? No, we don't have him, apparently. So sorry about that. Dave, thanks for the try, and we will attempt to get that worked out as we go forward. Let's go back to the lines here.
Oh,
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
hold on a second. We got Dave. Dave, you there?
Okay. Hey, Dave.
yes. Hey, Mark.
How are you? It's been a long
Hey, how you
time.
doing?
I am doing just fine.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's what I was telling Tim. It's been a long time. Hey, just want to make a simple point. There's a lot of talk about if Saban loses, Ole Miss, or Tennessee, or LSU are all 3 or 4, and Alabama ends up 8-4. Okay,
Yeah.
Saban's going nowhere. Okay, because he's going to stay at Alabama. Because next year, they're converting to the 12 playoff system, and
Yes.
if Saban stays, and he'll get in that. Whether they're 8-2, maybe 8, or lose 2 or 3, he will get into a 12 playoff system, and that will at least keep him there. If Alabama gets in the playoff, they're dangerous. Whether they're 1 through 12, and last year we used a 12 playoff system. He gets in, right? And there's no talk about saving this in the playoff. That's the basic point I want to say. Saban's not going to retire, no matter how many games he wins this year. Because he knows the future. He really foresaw the 2-game playoff, 4-game playoff, and the 12. So he's not going anywhere. And now if he doesn't get in the playoffs 2024, 25, 26, yeah, that's a different story. You're not one of 12 best teams in the nation. Yeah, you might want to look at why your program's not there. But if Alabama doesn't make the playoffs, it's not all gloom and doom for Saban. That's all I want to say.
Well, if you're ready for me to respond to that, I completely agree with you, Dave. I would add to that Nick Saban is the last coach. Nick Saban is the last coach in the country who needs a 12-team playoff over the course of his career. So, if anything, I don't even think they would need to expand to 12 teams for Nick Saban to still have the determination to produce championship teams. But you're right. The 12-team allows for more opportunity, especially in that conference. You would expect going forward, there are going to be 3 or 4 SEC teams in every year. And yes, Alabama needs to get its act together. I have not counted out Alabama for this year.
Yeah, I think we lost Dave.
Okay. All right. Well, Dave, thanks for calling. If you can hear me right now, thank you so much for calling. It's been a long time since we've heard from Dave, but good to hear from Dave. We'll keep it marching here at the Voice of College Football. We got Sean on the line. Hey, Sean.
Hey, Mark, how's it going?
I am doing just fine. What are you up to?
Oh, not much. I got I got a big day ahead of me tomorrow. My friends are actually taking me to South Bend.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I will be I'll be in South Bend, not inside the stadium for the game,
Okay.
but it will be I'll be tailgating, soaking in the full atmosphere tomorrow, and hopefully propelling the Buckeyes to victory.
So, Sean, are you going, meaning you're just going to kind of take in the atmosphere and tailgate with wherever you show up, or do you have a specific destination and you know you're going to?
I am a captive passenger
Oh,
in this
okay.
whole trip. So
Okay.
yeah, my friends are Notre Dame alum who are bringing me along, and I will proudly be wearing the brightest scarlet and gray colors I can bring, and yeah, hopefully be annoying a lot of people around 9-10 o'clock.
A lot of cheering, a lot of fist pumping. Now, are you secure enough in this friendship that you know that you're going to have a ride home?
I've known these people for like close to 20 years.
Okay. Well,
And I was the best man in the man's wedding.
All right.
So I believe I will be okay. This would be this would seem like
Looking out for you, Sean.
This would seem like a fairly petty thing to end this kind of friendship over, but you know, things happen. I can't guarantee anything.
Yes. Well, that should be a good time. Should be fun. Should be very passionate and fervent, regardless of what happens. You know, somebody's going to. I got to say that somebody's not going to be happy, of course, in your little caravan going home.
Well, you know, we'll have a night to sleep it off. So
that's right.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. I was watching with quite a bit of interest in the NC State game tonight. You know, obviously some sort of transitive scouting.
Yep.
Here, my feeling coming into this game was I thought North Carolina State was not a very good team.
I'm starting to think that way too.
That the national perception of them was. What was very inflated based on what they've done the past 5 years or so. And Notre Dame handled them. I mean, it was not a super close game, but it was a competitive football game when NC State played Notre Dame, right?
It was or was not.
It was.
Yeah, it was one of those games where I always had the feeling, the thought, the viewpoint that Notre Dame's in control of this game. However, you know, it was never out of reach where if NC State could have made a play, it usually was a 1-score game that would get extended to a 2-score game. And then NC State would score again to get it back to a 1-score game. Then it would go back to 2. And I think 24-17 was the last time NC State was really within reach.
Right.
And then it stretched out from there.
Yeah, but that was pretty deep into the game. That was like near the end of the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, my whole perception this year has been Ohio State has such a microscope on them that everyone's overreacting to very minor struggles they had early in the season.
Okay.
I mean,
minor?
Yeah, I would say fairly minor.
You think the offensive struggles were minor against Indiana?
Yeah, I definitely do. I mean, so like there were a couple of deep shots that were missed, that were off by a little bit, you know, marginally.
Okay.
I mean, that's to be expected. A new quarterback, first game, you know, and I mean, I feel like Western Kentucky's probably pretty similar to an NC State type of team. And well, one thing is I felt like the whole first couple games of the season, Ohio State was tinkering with some things offensively that I haven't seen them do a whole lot of in the past. Like they, go under center, and and like that wasn't working at all. And last game, it looked like the Ohio State offense that I'm used to seeing. Not just from an explosion standpoint, but just from a play calling, from a schematic standpoint. That's what they were. And they're pretty good, as they should be. I mean, they're going to face a much tougher defensive test tomorrow than they did last week, but I think you have to be pretty pleased by their performance. But it was just they received more criticism than any team in the country, I think, other than maybe in Alabama or something would, from having those kind of outings. I mean, Michigan has scored like 35 points against every game against pretty awful competition, and no one's saying anything about them at all.
Yeah, I think there's a few different reasons for that. One is because of Ohio State's style of play. People expect more.
Yeah.
I think they just figure, well, this is their strength, is throwing the ball. So they expect Ohio State to be more explosive and Michigan to be more run-oriented and winning games in a more workman-like fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. But Michigan's also kind of struggled to run the ball at times this year. And I haven't heard a whole lot of if you take away some of the explosive plays, like their running efficiency stats aren't great this year. It's just, my point is I feel like Ohio State's they're sort of a Goliath and everyone's kind of waiting for them to fall in a way. And I feel like the nation is kind of this is a super cliche, but I feel like a lot of people, the nation is going to be rooting for Notre Dame tomorrow because Ohio State's just been such a force for such a long time. And I feel like a lot of people are talking themselves into Notre Dame. So, the nation wants Ohio State to lose this game. Everybody that's not an Ohio State fan, I think, wants Ohio State to lose tomorrow night. Does that sound fair?
You're probably right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that, and again, my perspective, just like everybody else's, is skewed. So it's skewed by my past experiences, and now doing this, it's skewed by having certain fan bases that are more prominent on this channel. But it seems like Ohio State and Alabama, and traditionally Notre Dame, are more hated than anyone else. And maybe Notre Dame, it's backed down in recent years just because they haven't done much to offend anyone for such a long time that people aren't as sick of Notre Dame as they were 30 or 40 years ago. I think Ohio State and Alabama are the two most hated programs in the country. It seems like it to me.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, absolutely.
I might be wrong, but it seems like it.
Yeah, Alabama's shown much greater warts this year as far as it's, and it feels like the nation's rejoicing in Alabama sliding back a little bit. I'm definitely one of them. I'm happy to see some fresh blood in there as long as it doesn't come at the expense of my team. So
now see, for example, I knew Tim would respond like this. Of course, there are people that hate everyone. Every team's hated by somebody. Now, if you're talking about the very elite, yeah, I know people hate Texas. I know people hate USC, but again, we all have a skewed perspective because of what feedback comes back to us. Now, I do get a little bit more feedback than most people do because of doing this. And The only people I see that hate USC are when I go on our Oklahoma channel, and that's all directed at Lincoln Riley. That really has nothing to do with USC. But I know that there are USC haters out there. I just don't come across them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember the 04 through the 09 era. One of the sickest games I can remember as an Ohio State fan was the 09 game, Terrell Pryor. It was in Columbus against USC, and they kind of blew that game down the stretch.
Yeah.
And USC wasn't even that great that year, and it was just kind of an ugly loss. That was one of the more bitter losses to take, because they were the better team for the vast majority of that game and found a way to lose.
Yeah. And of course, that team, it's strange because that team then won the Big Ten championship and beat Oregon in the Rose Bowl. And if I'm not mistaken, Oregon beat USC. That was a really good team. They didn't contend for a national championship, but they were close. They finished like number 4 or 5 in the nation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if you've looked at the individual matchups here, but I'm being told Notre Dame and the interior of the offensive line is a little bit unsettled right now. Do you think Ohio State needs the games on Michael Hall and Tyleik Williams and those guys? Because if you give Hartman all day to do what he does, I'm afraid of that situation for sure.
Yeah, I really can't pinpoint any particular positional units to say, well, they can take the night off. They don't have to play well. So there are keys all over the place.
Yes, but if you're pinning your hopes on the edge rushers to beat those tackles, I think that's, as an Ohio State fan, that's a big problem. I mean, that's asking a lot. I'm not saying they can't do it, but
well, they better on it more than just occasionally.
Yeah.
That's why they were signed.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and just interesting. There were a couple. I don't know if you looked through the lines here. A couple lines I saw that seemed a little bit bad this week. Duke is only giving 21 to UConn tomorrow. I saw. Does that seem like way short to you? I know I think it's at UConn, but
well, I know that Vegas has a pretty strong opinion of teams, and it takes a little time for them to come off of that opinion. So I'm sure Duke is outplaying, of course. They're outplaying their line value with Vegas. Of course, they were a 2-touchdown dog to Clemson and won the game by 3 touchdowns. And they beat Lafayette, and I'm trying to think their other game. They beat Northwestern last week. They were a 17 or 18 point favorite in that game. They won by 24.
Yeah,
but yeah, they're beating up the point spread right now.
I would actually think Northwestern's a better team than UConn. UConn's been really, really bad. That was one of the reasons I didn't think NC State was good coming into the night, because that was a competitive game.
When you say UConn's been really, really bad, do you mean like in recent history? Or you're talking about this season?
This season, they got stomped by Georgia State the week after.
Yeah, their opening night game was fairly competent. You talk about, we've talked about North Carolina State. They stayed in that game against NC State.
Yeah, but that's part of the reason I didn't think NC State was any good, and why I thought there might be some problems with Notre Dame being a little bit, that game being a little bit too competitive for too long.
Yeah.
But, so that was one I was looking at, and I think that's about all I have for tonight, Mark.
All right, Sean. Well, good to hear from you. Have a great trip to South Bend.
Absolutely.
And be looking out behind you. You know, be very aware. No, I'm just kidding. Have a great time. And
Always got to be aware of your surroundings.
that's right. We'll talk to
All
you
right.
soon.
Take care.
All right, let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. We've got, of course, the big Maryland-Michigan State game that everyone's anticipating on Saturday at the forefront of all college football discussion from coast to coast. McD, what's going on?
Mark, how you doing?
I am doing just fine.
Mark,
do you have me turned up in the background there?
Let me turn you down a little
Thank
bit.
you.
All right, good now?
I believe so.
Okay. Mark, I gotta be honest, I gotta hold you accountable.
I'm the one person that doesn't need to be held accountable. No, go right ahead. Sure.
Mark, I watched all your prediction videos before the season started.
Okay.
And I should have held you accountable. I might hold you accountable on this. You had NC State going 9-3.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Have they lost 4 games already?
No, but they're
You're
going
holding
to.
me accountable.
I'm holding you accountable because why do you have Dave Doran doing anything better than 7-5? I mean, it's Dave Doran.
Well,
You
he
should
did go
expect
9-3
nothing
2
from
years
him.
ago. But please, let me know when he's lost his 4th game and I'm wrong.
I
I'm
will.
not saying it looks good, but yeah, that's what I came up with, 9-3.
I was stunned when you said that in the preseason that Dave Doran was going to win more than 7 games.
Maybe I felt guilty for bashing him so many times.
Mark, you know how you've been tough on my boy Mike Loxley?
Yes, and Dave Doran.
Yeah. Can it be true that Mike Loxley broke Dave Doran?
I didn't
Can
know
that be
Dave
true?
Doran was in such a position to be broken.
I mean, I know NC State, they have the loss to Notre Dame. I'm not going to criticize them for that. But the UConn game, they were only like 14-point favorites against UConn, and I thought that was a give me. And UConn covered.
I know it.
And Maryland played Virginia last week. Now, granted, Maryland did get off to a slow start, which is the reason why the point I'm going to get to here in a second of why I'm calling. But Maryland won by 4 touchdowns. NC State had a win on the last-second field goal. Now, granted, I know one game was on the road for Virginia, one game was in Virginia, but I mean, NC State's going to be. I mean, they're not going to be 9-3 this year. I don't think they make a bowl game from what I've seen so far this year.
Okay, well, based on what we've seen so far, you're on track, but still holding me accountable for something that hasn't occurred yet. You understand the irony in that?
Yes.
Okay.
But I couldn't believe I had to call you out for saying Dave Doran was going to be better than 7-5. So that was point number one.
He was 8-4 last year.
He was
9 and I believe they were 8-4 the year before, and they had a 9-3 in there. He's had 3 consecutive years better than that.
I know, but it's Dave Doran. But that's point number one I'm going to make. Point number two is a quick, easy point before I get into the Maryland Terps. I absolutely disagree with you. I think Texas A&M wins that game against Auburn. I just don't see it.
Well, they're a favorite. They should win. Yes, they're at home, and they're a more talented team, and they should win.
What makes you want pull the trigger for the upset? Just curious.
That I have seen in recent years that Texas A&M has not necessarily, other than that Alabama upset a few years ago, has really not been any better of a team at home than they have been on the road. You know, they've lost to the likes of Appalachian State at home, for one thing. They looked completely lost and awful against Miami a couple of weeks ago. Those are two things.
They did. And that made me happy that they lost to Miami for a few reasons, which I'm not going to get into. But I'll tell you this as well. Usually, with that Auburn A&M series, usually the road team wins the game in that series. Like some of the games over the years, I'm thinking about. I think it was 2018 when Auburn ran to A&M and they won like 21-10. I'm thinking the time when A&M went to Auburn, when Auburn was highly ranked and A&M was, I think, like a massive dog and won a shootout. So history in that series, I think, tends to go to the road team personally. So you got that trend, but I just don't see it. I'm not high on Auburn. Auburn's proved nothing to me this year.
But A&M has.
A&M hasn't either, but at the same time, it's in A&M. They're the talented team. I also don't believe Hugh Freeze at all. I don't. I think that guy only won because he cheated, personally. But that's just me. So I just wanted to figure out why you were pulling the trigger on the upset. But to the Maryland Terps, they play on NBC 3:30 against Michigan State. I expect them to win this game. I am absolutely going to blow a gasket though for the third week in a row, because I'm not going to count the Towson game. If they get off to a slow start, you know how embarrassing being down 14-3 on national television to Charlotte was for me.
Well,
I mean,
it could have been more embarrassing if 2 hours later you would have lost. So at
that
least
is
they
true.
came back and won. The other thing I'll say about you playing at 3:30 on NBC is that you are going to most likely have to call in McD and report the score because nobody's going to be watching that game.
It's funny because it seems like when we're on NBC, I joke around calling it the game of the week because it's a national televised game, but it always seems like a game on national television, it gets overshadowed by other games. I mean, obviously, Ole Miss, Alabama. I believe Colorado, Oregon's at the same time.
Yes.
I know I called in earlier this week saying that Oregon's gonna boat race Colorado. And I still believe that Utah, UCLA is also at that time too. I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
That's gonna be an interesting game. Is Cam Rising gonna get? Is he gonna play this week?
It's a great question. I don't know. If somebody does know in the chat or has heard, please let us know. I've not looked into that.
So I think Utah wins that one, even without Cam Rising. I mean, you look at UCLA's resume. Their resume took a big hit last night with Coastal Carolina losing to Georgia State and by 2 possessions. But overall, I will give you a report. Maryland cannot get off to a slow start. Now, they could probably get away with it against a Michigan State team. Let's be honest. Who knows where they're at? It's probably not good, if you want my honest opinion. I mean, but Maryland is probably 5-0 going to Ohio State. And the thing that concerns me about this Maryland team, and I got to rip my boy Mike Loxley to shreds over this, he did not have the team ready to play the past 2 weeks. I mean, and it showed. I mean, down 14-0 to the worst Power 5 team in college football. Down 14-3 to a team that was picked last in the American, which, by the way, Charlotte's not going to finish last in the American for what I have seen so far this year. Just want to throw that out there. But it's unacceptable. I don't know what to say. I was at a loss of words back-to-back weeks seeing that. What do you think about Maryland getting off to slow starts, sleepwalking through the first quarter?
Yeah, well, that obviously can't continue. That's all there is to it. So whatever they're doing, any good coach is going to be able to self-diagnose what they have done to create that situation, whether they need to better script plays the first drive or whatever they need to do They should be able to pinpoint after this having happened a few times what they need to do. But you can't go down by double digits against the better teams in the Big Ten. We already know that. So
Oh yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I don't even know if you could get away with it against Michigan State. I mean, now granted, they're in that whole thing's going on, and who knows? And as I said, I think this is a lost season for Michigan State. But overall, I mean, yeah, you get away with it probably in these next two games. You're not going to get away with it against Ohio State. I don't care how much they've underperformed against Youngstown State and Indiana. I mean, you're not going to get away with it. You're not going to get away with it against a Michigan, a Penn State. I mean, the way Maryland's playing, they have probably a certain ceiling of 8-4 because they'll probably have another game that if they do that, and it probably won't work out. Even though I do think our Big Ten West schedule, the Illinois and Nebraska games, look easier than what they did in preseason. You look at they just can't. I mean, you got to get off the faster starts. I believe Mike Locksley would fix that. I believe he would, but that's kind of my gripe with Maryland right now. So.
All right. Well, stomp on the Spartans. I think that's what most people are expecting, although it's still only a 7.5 point spread in Vegas.
The spread's correct.
And that looks like, well, it looks on the surface based on all the turmoil with Michigan State and with Maryland, of course, winning by 28 last week. It looks like a sucker's bet, but anytime that is the case, it usually happens. So
State will be tough at home. They'll be tough in East Lansing. They'll get their best shot, especially after last week's embarrassment. So, for them against Washington, you'll get their best shot. But I expect Maryland to win, and they should move on to Indiana, and they should win that game too. So, we'll see what happens. But thanks for taking my call, Mark. Go Terps! We're gonna beat the Spartans. We're gonna beat a Spartans team that wants Mark D'Antonio to be the head coach again. Go Terps.
all right, let's keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. We got Jeffrey on the line. Jeffrey, what's going on?
I'm doing good. The Maryland guy that was just on, I don't agree that Virginia's the worst Power 5 team. I mean, it's debatable what the worst Power 5 team is, but I don't think it's Virginia. I mean, they've had moments. Calandria actually has plays at times where he is solid, but he just throws weird passes at, inopportune times in the games that they've played that have cost them some of the games that they've lost. But I do think that there's a couple teams that you could argue that are worse. Boston College, I thought, was the worst, and then they played the way they did against Florida State. So I don't know. Arizona State's awful, so I don't know. We'll see. Maybe Virginia ends up being the worst. I just don't think that they are. But that beside the point, that was a good game tonight between NC State and Virginia. And I don't know if you saw the ending, but I was going to ask about the helmet with the quarterback. I don't know if anyone's asked that already.
Yeah, somebody called up and explained that.
Because basically what happened was that it was already coming off, but he took it all the way off, and that they got the penalty there. What did you think about that?
Well, I didn't see it, but if somebody's these officials need to understand time and place. That's what I have an issue with. Let's not be deciding a game. Now, if somebody takes somebody and, body slams them in the middle of the field, yes, call the penalty. I don't care if it's going to decide the game. But if a helmet's halfway off a guy's head and he just kind of allows it to come off before he puts it back on, I don't like to see the officials decide the game or not understand, again, time and place and when it's more appropriate to call non-football related. That's what I consider a non-football related penalty. That there's a reason it's in the rule book. I completely agree with it. Even though on the surface it seems ridiculous that what's wrong with one player taking off their helmet? Well, then all 22 of them can be taking off their helmets constantly and doing whatever they want. So, yes, there's a reason for the rule, but don't decide the game, Mr. Official. That's my thought.
mean, the thing with the play is it theoretically didn't decide the game, because what happened was it was after the 2-point conversion when they tied the game.
Sure.
But then it allowed the kickoff to be put back, which allowed NC State to get good field position on the return. They ran it back 30 yards. If not, it could have been a touchback, and the game more than likely would have gone to overtime. So, I mean, to your point, don't do it at that point of the game where it could decide the game, but it didn't completely decide the game. Virginia still could have stopped them, but they just didn't. So it just made it easier for NC State to get in field goal range. It is what it is. It was a good game. Wisconsin, though, they looked good against Purdue. I saw a lot of people picking Purdue, and I was afraid to not pick Purdue because every time that I pick them, they win. And when I don't pick them, it's the other way around. So Purdue, though, ended up losing fairly easily. But unfortunately, Wisconsin did suffer a big casualty. I'm sure people have talked about that as well already. Ches Malushi got hurt, and he's probably done for the season for what I can tell. It was awful injury. I mean, they still got Braylon Allen, and he's really good. But the tandem of both of them in the backfield, that being taken away, I think it could – I'm not saying derail their season because they're still in the West. They have an easier schedule. That's not a good loss for them at all. But it was a good win.
Yeah, I fully expected Wisconsin to win that game fairly easily. So that pretty much fell in line with what I was expecting.
I will say, too, Boise State, San Diego State that's on right now, Genty, the running back for Boise State, is incredible. I don't know if anyone's mentioned him either already because I just got on, but that guy's really good. I mean, he has 200 receiving yards and 200 rushing yards already in a couple games, and he's going out there Mac trucking everybody. He's the entire offense for Boise State. This dude is really entertaining, fun to watch, and a guy that I knew about him last year, but he's gotten a lot better. He's really good. So I expect him to be in the NFL if he keeps up this level of play and stays healthy. He's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm well aware of him. I don't know that I've watched him play that closely, that I was really that impressed with him one way or the other. So I take it Boise State has a big lead in this game.
It was tied at half, 17-all. Don't have it on right now because I'm got the TV off so I can concentrate on the conversation. But it was 17-all at the half. So, and Genty was basically doing the majority of the hard work on offense. It was just really cool to watch. I haven't seen the Air Force game at all, but I think Air Force was down, but they might have taken the lead. But yeah, it's good Friday night action. I always tell people that I know, watch these type of games. They might not be what's coming tomorrow or technically today on the East Coast, but these games are good too. But I guess to get into some of the games, because if not, I'm going to dilly-dally too long, and then I'm going to run out of time to get to some of them. But yeah, Alabama,
we got 7 or 8 minutes here.
Awesome. Alabama, Ole Miss. This question is probably not going to make any sense because of the fact that there's no way that you can really answer it. But something in my mind that's been with Jalen Milroe, thinking about him, I feel like if Jalen Milroe had been able to play last week against South Florida, be still the starting quarterback, I think that it would have been better for him in that situation than to be able to turn back around and have the confidence to beat Ole Miss. The fact he was benched, there's a shot that he comes back out and plays better because he's not going to want to get benched. But that pressure of knowing that he got benched after the Texas game, if he plays bad again, he could get benched again. I just feel like that's not necessarily a good thing. I feel like it would have been better for him to play in that South Florida game to prepare for this game. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Well, I'm going to defer, number one, to Nick Saban to know what he's doing. Secondly, no coach wants to bench the starter, go to the backup, and then bring the starter back to show that he made the wrong decision in the first place. Now, Nick Saban has somewhat done that, but he also intentionally sat down Jalen Milroe for this game. I don't know at what point he let us know in on his plan that he just believes that it was important for Jalen Milroe to take a step back and to watch from the sideline and to clear his head, and that he would. Now, if Tyler Buckner would have lit up the world, then we would have a different deal going on right now. But he obviously was far from that. So, Ty Simpson only came in for like 9 pass attempts. I think he went 5 or 9, and he led the scoring drive. So, but apparently, Nick Saban's also going by what he sees in practice that we don't see. So I would agree with you that like if somebody presented this situation to me, I would say that's really not the way to handle that. But since that's the way Nick Saban's handling that, I'm going to defer to the greatest coach in history.
I mean, I 100% agree, and I don't like questioning what Saban does either, because it seems insane after what he's done. 7 titles. It's he's fantastic. It's just this just feels different because, I mean, Alabama hasn't really had this problem in a while outside of the Hurts-Tua situation. And both were really good. Just Tua offered the bigger upside throwing the ball downfield versus Hurts at the time. But like here, I mean, Ty Simpson, I feel like he's going to be good eventually. But, I mean, he had that one good throw. But the problem is that he had no pocket awareness. He was just getting sacked left and right. And everyone was blaming the O-line online that I was seeing. They were like, oh, the O-line is not protecting. No, they're not as good as they used to be on the offensive line. But Ty Simpson also wasn't being aware. He was just standing there and letting, the weak side defender eventually get to him from behind. He wasn't even paying attention. Surprised he didn't fumble. A couple of times he got hit really hard, and he just didn't see it. But yeah, I feel like Milroe gives them the best chance to win this game. I picked them to win. I know your Patreon pick can't tell who he thinks is going to win, but I think Alabama will win. But if they do lose this game, it's going to change my mind on Alabama. I don't know if I'm going to be picking them for some of the bigger games coming up next, like at A&M, Tennessee. I have to reevaluate, but the way I think, because I'm just used to Bama winning, bouncing back. That's what they've been doing my entire life. So this is going to be a big measuring stick. The other big measuring stick game for me, it's a massive game. I can't wait for it. The other big game for the measuring stick is Clemson. I picked Clemson too. I'm going with the old guard here, the teams that usually win, the powerhouses. I'm going Clemson. Everybody's like, oh, bad pick. Florida State has got it in the bag. And I'm like, I'm going Clemson. It's going to be a crazy environment. We'll see. And Florida State, I know they played bad against Boston College, and that didn't really influence my decision too much because you can have a bad game and then bounce back because it could be a look ahead. It's happened before. But Florida State, they have not won a game like that yet. Even though Clemson's not ranked, even though Clemson lost to Duke, that's still a completely different environment, a completely different situation, atmosphere, all that kind of thing. I'm going Clemson. I know that's probably an unpopular pick, though, but
well, it's only a 1 or 2 point spread, so Vegas is right there with you as basically it somewhat being a toss up. The issue I have with Clemson is that Cade Klubnik has not played well against good teams, and he's had several opportunities now. He did play pretty well against a bad North Carolina State defense, a good North Carolina State or NC team, UNC team in the conference championship game
that was terrible defense.
But the Tennessee game, he came into the Notre Dame game, he came into the Syracuse game last year. Now he's played this game against Duke, and I don't put most of that loss on him, but he also contributed to it. He was one of many factors in that loss. So he's going to have to do something in this game that we haven't seen him do, and that's play well in a big spot against a good team.
I agree, and that's what maybe almost picked Florida State. It's just because they haven't won a game like this yet. We'll just got to see it to believe it. If Florida State wins, though, again, and Clemson is not impressive, I definitely won't be as high on Clemson anymore for the foreseeable future. Oregon, Colorado, I'm not expecting Colorado to keep it close. I mean, Travis Hunter being out is a bad blow. They could with Shadur Sanders. Like, if he has an insane game, 400 yards through the air, something like that, you never know. But Autzen, and that's going to be the biggest environment he's ever played in. I know they played at TCU, but it's not the same. Playing at Oregon is a whole different deal. But Bo Nix, I called him Mr. Reliable the other day, which I never thought those words were going to come out of my mouth, because when he was at Auburn, everyone was like, this guy's the most inconsistent quarterback ever. And now he's consistent. He's good at Oregon. He's got, good talent around him. He doesn't make too many mistakes. So I expect Oregon to win by a decent amount. I hope it's a good game. I agree, Dave. Bama's O-line's bad, but still Ty Simpson's awareness was awful. He'll probably get better at that. But yeah, I think that with Oregon, I just feel like they're going to be too much for Colorado. I hope Colorado keeps it close, though, because everybody wants the game to be good. I mean, they're literally like, I'm loving the ESPN broadcast, like the biggest games, Clemson, Florida State, Colorado, Oregon. I'm like, yeah, of course you're going to say Colorado, Oregon. It's prime time. I mean, you've got Alabama, Ole Miss, Utah, UCLA, and Oregon, Colorado. And I expect Oregon, Colorado to probably be the worst game of the three. Could be wrong. But like the fact that they're doing with that game, it cracks me up. Hope it's good, though. But then you got Utah, UCLA. Cam Rising, I don't know if he is going to be available or not. It's been rumored that he could play, but it's also been rumored that he's not, so it's up in the air. I think Utah will win anyway because it's in Rice Eccles, and Dante Moore, as with some of these other quarterbacks, has never played in that type of environment before. So I think Utah will win that one anyway, even with Rising out possibly, but I'm not as confident with Rising out unless he plays. But in a way, I wouldn't be super confident either because it would be his first game back. It's a complicated situation either way. So I think Utah will win, but it's going to be interesting.
All right, Jeffrey, we're up against it. I appreciate the call, and hopefully we have a great day of college football tomorrow, of course, and you can certainly are welcome to give us a ring after all the big games tomorrow.
Sounds great. I can't wait. And on the last couple big games, I got Oregon State over Washington State, Notre Dame over Ohio State, and Penn State over Iowa, and obviously Indiana over Akron. Thanks for taking my call, Mark. Have a great night, and like and subscribe, everybody, and got some great football tomorrow.
Appreciate that, Jeffrey. Have a good night. We've got a Ohio State Notre Dame watch party, so let's watch it together. And even if you're the type that doesn't like to get distracted during a game, you can still keep us on a screen, and you can chime in during the timeouts and during the commercial timeouts and all of that. But again, Ohio State, Notre Dame get together at 7:30 Eastern time. We're going to watch it together right here at the Voice of College Football. And of course, you know me, I'm going to be providing instant analysis of all the big games throughout the day. I will start out noon Eastern time with my eyes squarely on Clemson, Florida State, Michigan, Rutgers in particular. Then at 3:30, of course, we've got Oregon, Colorado, and we've got Ole Miss, Alabama, Utah, UCLA, and others. And so be looking out for those instant analysis. And if we've got something interesting to talk about at halftime of those games, maybe an upset is brewing, I'll break in and we'll talk during halftime as well. Right here at the Voice of College Football, we will see you on Saturday.